The Mafia Boss's sister suddenly collapsed to the floor. Guests rushed toward her in panic. The plus-size waitress shoved them back. "Nobody touch her!" A furious executive grabbed her arm. "You're just a waitress!" She tore free and looked straight at the handsome Mafia Boss. "Your sister is having a stroke. Give me 3 minutes, or you may lose her forever." The entire dining room froze. Every life now depended on the woman nobody had noticed. Evelyn was already on her knees beside Sophia before the room understood what was happening. "Call emergency services. Tell them possible stroke. 30-year-old female. Symptoms started less than a minute ago." Nobody moved. Evelyn looked up sharply. "Now!" Adrian pulled out his phone. Around them, panic spread through the dining room. One guest shouted for water. Another man reached beneath Sophia's shoulders, apparently intending to lift her. Evelyn caught his wrist. "Don't move her." "She can't stay on the floor." "Yes, she can." The authority in her voice stopped him. Evelyn turned back to Sophia. "Can you hear me?" Sophia blinked. "Yes." The word came out, thick and distorted. Evelyn's stomach tightened, but nothing showed on her face. "Good. Look at me. Only me." She checked Sophia's face. "Smile for me." Sophia tried. The left side barely moved. "Raise both arms." Sophia lifted them. Her left arm drifted downward almost immediately. Evelyn checked the time. The signs were unmistakable. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time mattered now more than almost anything else. Behind her, Gregory Hale finally pushed through the gathering crowd. "Evelyn, what the hell are you doing?" She ignored him. Gregory grabbed her shoulder. "These are private guests. Get back to your station." Evelyn shrugged him off without looking away from Sophia. "Mr. Hale, if you interfere again, you may cost this woman her chance to recover." His face reddened. "You are a waitress." Evelyn finally looked at him. "Not right now." The room went silent again. Adrian remained on the phone, answering the dispatcher's questions with clipped precision. Evelyn noticed Sophia trying to swallow. "No water," she said immediately. A guest holding a glass stopped. "But she needs nothing by mouth. Her swallowing may be impaired." Evelyn shifted carefully, keeping Sophia safe and watching her breathing. "Sophia, stay with me. Tell me your full name." "Sophia Moretti." "Good. Do you know where you are?" Sophia struggled to answer. Fear entered her eyes. Evelyn took her hand. "You're doing fine. Don't fight the words. Just breathe." Across from her, Adrian watched. Men twice Evelyn's size had gone pale. Executives who commanded thousands of employees were shouting over one another. Evelyn was the only person in the room who seemed untouched by the chaos. Adrian ended the call. "Ambulance is 3 minutes out." "Good. We need the exact time symptoms began." Adrian glanced toward the table. She dropped her fork at 8:17. Was she normal immediately before that? Yes. Any blood thinners? Recent surgery? Medical conditions? Adrian answered each question. For perhaps the first time in years, Adrian Moretti did exactly what someone else told him to do. No argument. No threat. No demand for explanations. His sister's frightened eyes had stripped rank and power from the room. There was only time. And Evelyn understood how quickly it disappeared. Sirens became audible outside. Gregory stepped forward again. "This has gone far enough." Adrian turned his head. One look stopped him. "Touch her again," Adrian said quietly. "And you answer to me." Gregory froze. Seconds later, paramedics entered with their equipment. Evelyn gave the lead paramedic a concise report. Sudden facial droop, left arm weakness, and dysarthria. Last known well at 8:17. No food or fluids given. She's remained responsive. Airway stable. The paramedic stared at her. You medical? Evelyn hesitated. Former ICU nurse. Adrian heard every word. The paramedics moved Sophia onto the stretcher and rushed her toward the exit. Adrian followed, then stopped beside Evelyn. For one brief second, the feared man looked less like a mafia boss than a terrified older brother. You knew exactly what to do. Evelyn looked toward the doors, carrying his sister away. I knew what not to waste. What? She met his eyes. Time. Then she stepped back. But Adrian Moretti did not forget her face. By midnight, Sophia was inside a neurological intensive care unit. Adrian stood outside the glass doors while physicians moved around his sister. He had spent his life believing every problem could be controlled through preparation, money, influence, or fear. None of those things had recognized Sophia's stroke. A waitress had. And that bothered him almost as much as it fascinated him. His phone rang constantly. Executives wanted updates. Associates offered private specialists. Vanessa Pierce had already sent 3 messages asking whether she should come to the hospital. Adrian ignored them all. Instead, he called one of the few men he trusted completely. Find out who Evelyn Rhodes is. There was a pause. The waitress? Yes. How deep? Adrian looked through the glass at Sophia. Deep enough to tell me why a woman serving wine knew more than everyone in that room. By morning, Adrian had an answer. Evelyn Rhodes had not exaggerated her credentials. She had understated them. She had graduated near the top of her nursing class, earned excellent clinical evaluations, and eventually worked in an intensive care unit where former supervisors described her as unusually calm during emergencies. There were no disciplinary complaints, no malpractice accusations, no suspicious resignation. Nothing that explained why she was carrying dinner plates instead of caring for patients. Adrian read the report twice, then a third time. One line caught his attention. Voluntary resignation, family circumstances. That was all. Adrian disliked incomplete information. 3 days later, he returned to the restaurant. Gregory Hale nearly sprinted across the dining room when he saw him. Mr. Moretti, I'm so relieved to hear your sister is stable. Please understand that what happened the other night was completely outside our normal— Where is Evelyn? Gregory stopped. Excuse me? Evelyn Rhodes. Gregory's expression tightened. She's working. Then I'll wait. Adrian chose a quiet table. Minutes later, Evelyn approached carrying a menu. She showed no visible surprise. Good evening, Mr. Moretti. You remember me? Your sister collapsed during my shift. You're difficult to forget. The corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. How is she? Improving. Relief softened Evelyn's face immediately. Not curiosity, not calculation. Relief. Can she speak? Some words. The doctors are optimistic. Evelyn released a breath. That's good. Adrian studied her. You never told me you were an ICU nurse. You didn't ask. You didn't think it was relevant? That night it was relevant. Tonight you need someone to take your dinner order. She opened her notepad. Adrian did not touch the menu. Why did you leave? For the first time, something changed in her expression. A small wall went up. That isn't on tonight's menu. I looked into your professional record. Her eyes sharpened. You investigated me. I needed to know who saved my sister. You could have asked. I just did. And I'm choosing not to answer. Most people became nervous when Adrian stared at them. Evelyn simply waited. Finally he said, Your record says family circumstances. Her fingers tightened slightly around the pen. That was personal. Adrian recognized the warning and, unusually, respected it. He leaned back. "Then I won't ask again." That surprised her. Before she could respond, Gregory appeared beside the table. "Is there a problem, Mr. Moretti?" "No." Gregory glanced at Evelyn. "If her behavior is making you uncomfortable, I can assign another server." Adrian's gaze turned cold. "Her behavior saved my sister." Gregory swallowed. "Of course, I only meant, I know what you meant." Gregory disappeared. Evelyn looked at Adrian for a long moment. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." "No. Men like you usually think you do." That earned the faintest smile. "You have strong opinions about men like me." "I have strong opinions about everyone." For the first time since Sophia's collapse, Adrian felt something unexpected. Amusement. Evelyn tapped her pen against the notepad. "Now, are you actually eating?" Adrian finally opened the menu. Later that evening, another piece of information reached him. A former ICU colleague remembered why Evelyn had begun missing optional shifts before resigning. Her mother had become ill. Not briefly. Not mildly. The illness had lasted years. And when Adrian asked what kind of illness could make one of the hospital's most promising nurses abandon the career she had built, the answer came quietly. Alzheimer's disease. Adrian looked at Evelyn across the restaurant. She was laughing with an elderly couple as she poured their coffee. Nothing about her suggested bitterness. Nothing asked to be admired. For the first time, Adrian understood that the mystery was not why Evelyn Rhodes had stopped being a nurse. It was what she had loved enough to give nursing up. Adrian could have ordered another investigation. Instead, he did something less familiar. He waited. Sophia's recovery demanded most of his attention. Her speech improved slowly, then her left hand began responding to therapy. Every small victory changed the atmosphere around her hospital room. One afternoon, Sophia caught him reading Evelyn's professional record again. "You're obsessed." Her words were still slower than before, but the teasing was unmistakable. "I'm thorough. You've read that page 4 times. Adrian folded the report. Sophia smiled. 5. He ignored her. But the question remained. Why would a woman talented enough to build a career in critical care simply walk away? The answer came from Dr. Claire Bennett, a former ICU colleague who agreed to speak only after Adrian made it clear Evelyn was not in trouble. Evelyn didn't leave because she stopped loving nursing, Claire told him. She left because she loved someone more. Her mother, Margaret Rhodes, had begun forgetting small things first. Appointments, names, where she had left her keys. Then came the diagnosis. Alzheimer's. Evelyn initially believed she could manage both worlds. She worked 12-hour ICU shifts, drove across the city afterward, prepared her mother's meals, organized medications, paid bills, and slept whenever exhaustion allowed. For nearly 2 years, she barely complained. Then Margaret deteriorated. She began wandering. Once, Evelyn found her 3 blocks from home wearing slippers in the rain. Another time, Margaret left the stove burning because she had forgotten she was cooking. She needed full-time care, Claire said. Why didn't Evelyn hire someone? She did. Adrian said nothing. Claire's expression hardened slightly. Good care is expensive, Mr. Moretti. Evelyn spent her savings, then her retirement account, then almost everything else she had. Adrian looked down at the file. The voluntary resignation suddenly meant something very different. She quit to become her mother's caregiver. She chose her mother. There was no admiration in Claire's voice, only fact, as if Evelyn herself would have rejected the idea that caring for the woman who raised her deserved applause. How long? Until Margaret died. Adrian remained silent. And afterward? Claire sighed. By then, Evelyn was grieving, financially drained and exhausted. Returning to intensive care wasn't as simple as putting the uniform back on. So she found work that paid the bills while she figured out whether she still wanted medicine to own that much of her life. That evening, Adrian returned to the restaurant. Evelyn was carrying a tray when she noticed him. "You again?" Disappointed? Concerned. "You've been eating restaurant food too often." He almost smiled. She set down his coffee without asking. Adrian watched her turn toward another table where an elderly woman was struggling to read the menu. Evelyn crouched beside her rather than standing over her. She patiently described several dishes, never once making the woman feel embarrassed. Something inside Adrian shifted. He had spent years measuring people by leverage, what they wanted, what they feared, what they could be persuaded to sacrifice. Evelyn had sacrificed almost everything, and apparently expected nothing in return. When she returned, Adrian said, "I heard about your mother." Her expression changed instantly. "From your investigation? From someone who worked with you?" Evelyn looked away. For several seconds, neither spoke. "I'm sorry," Adrian said. She seemed almost surprised by the simplicity of it. "Thank you. You gave up your career for her?" "No," Adrian frowned. "I know what happened." "You know the facts." Evelyn sat across from him for a moment, though she was still technically working. "I didn't give up my career for my mother. I chose my mother while I still had her." Her voice remained steady. "Nursing would still exist afterward." "She wouldn't." Adrian had no answer. "Do you regret it?" "Losing her?" "Every day." She paused. "Choosing her?" "Never." Then she stood. Before leaving, Evelyn looked back at him. The hardest part wasn't watching her forget my name. Adrian waited. It was realizing I still knew exactly who she was. She walked away. For once, Adrian Moretti did not follow a question until he had every answer. He simply watched her, and understood that the woman who had saved Sophia had already spent years trying to save someone she knew she could never cure. Respect came first. Something warmer was beginning behind it, and Adrian was not yet ready to give that feeling a name. Vanessa Pierce first heard Evelyn's name from Adrian. That alone was enough to make her pay attention. For years, Vanessa had occupied a carefully undefined place beside him. She attended his charity galas, appeared at private dinners, and moved through his social circle with the confidence of a woman everyone assumed would eventually become something more. Adrian had never made that promise. Vanessa had simply grown accustomed to nobody challenging the possibility. Then a waitress began appearing in his conversations. Not often. That made it worse. Adrian rarely spoke about anyone without a reason. At Sophia's hospital suite, Vanessa arrived carrying flowers and found Evelyn already there. Sophia was sitting beside the window, slowly practicing words with a speech therapist's exercise cards. Evelyn held one up. Unnecessarily. Sophia stared at her. "You're evil." "Excellent pronunciation." Sophia laughed. So did Adrian. Vanessa stopped in the doorway. She could not remember the last time she had heard him laugh that easily. Evelyn noticed her first and stood. "You must be Vanessa." Vanessa's smile was flawless. "And you must be the waitress." The room cooled. Evelyn merely nodded. "That too." Later, Vanessa cornered Gregory at the restaurant. "You allowed an employee with an expired clinical career to take control of a medical emergency involving one of the most powerful families in this city." Gregory immediately became defensive. "I tried to stop her." "Then perhaps people should know that." Within days, Whispers began circulating. Evelyn had supposedly dramatized Sophia's symptoms. She had allegedly interfered with guests. Someone claimed she had announced her nursing background to impress Adrian, although Evelyn had done precisely the opposite. Gregory called her into his office. "You created a liability. I recognized a stroke. You acted outside your position. My position was the closest person who knew what was happening. You embarrassed important guests." Evelyn stared at him. "A woman's brain was losing blood flow, and you're worried someone felt embarrassed?" Gregory's jaw tightened. "I'm placing a formal warning in your employment record. For saving her? For refusing management instructions." Evelyn looked at the paper, then pushed it back across his desk. "I won't sign that." Gregory leaned forward. "You should remember how replaceable waitresses are." Evelyn's expression remained calm. So should you. The confrontation might have remained private if Sophia had not learned about it. Still recovering, she arrived at the restaurant with Adrian 2 days later. Gregory hurried towards them. "Ms. Moretti, what a wonderful surprise." Sophia's speech remained deliberate, but every word was clear. "I heard you disciplined Evelyn." Gregory's smile faltered. There were procedural concerns. Sophia looked at him for several seconds. "I remember that night." Gregory said nothing. "I remember people shouting. I remember someone trying to give me water. I remember being terrified because my arm wouldn't move." Her gaze hardened. "And I remember Evelyn." Vanessa, standing nearby, stepped in. No one denies she helped Sophia. The question is whether she may have overstated the danger. Sophia turned toward her. "My neurologist didn't think so." Vanessa's smile tightened. "I only mean that emotions can distort memories. My brain was injured, Vanessa, not my intelligence." Silence spread across the room. Adrian watched without interfering. Sophia continued. "Evelyn recognized what was happening before anyone else. She kept people from moving me. She stopped them from giving me anything to swallow. She got the ambulance called immediately." Then she looked directly at Gregory. "You tried to pull her away." Gregory went pale. "I was maintaining order." "No," Sophia said. She was. Across the dining room, Evelyn had stopped moving. She had not asked Sophia to defend her. She had not asked Adrian to intervene. That mattered to him. Vanessa saw Adrian looking at Evelyn and understood something she had not expected. Gratitude was becoming respect. Respect was becoming attachment. And unlike money, influence, or social position, it was something Vanessa could not simply purchase. So she made a decision. If Evelyn Rhodes could not be dismissed as merely a waitress, Vanessa would find another way to make Adrian doubt the woman she had been before becoming one. Vanessa expected Evelyn's past to contain something useful. It did not. Every former supervisor described a capable nurse. Every available record showed a woman who had left voluntarily. Even the years spent caring for her mother offered nothing scandalous. So Vanessa changed tactics. If Evelyn's past could not discredit her, perhaps the rescue could. Questions began circulating among the restaurant's private clientele. Had Sophia truly been in immediate danger? Had Evelyn frightened everyone unnecessarily? Had an unlicensed former nurse exceeded her authority because Adrian Moretti happened to be watching? Gregory did nothing to stop the rumors. Then he made the mistake of putting his version in writing. His internal incident report described Evelyn's actions as unnecessary intervention by service personnel before qualified medical professionals arrived. Adrian obtained a copy. He read it once. Then he called Sophia's neurologist. The answer arrived with considerably less ambiguity. Sophia had suffered an acute ischemic stroke. Her documented symptoms had begun at approximately 8:17 p.m. The emergency call had been placed almost immediately. The paramedic report specifically recorded facial asymmetry, unilateral arm weakness, and impaired speech before hospital arrival. The neurologist explained the timeline to Adrian and Sophia together. "Stroke treatment is extremely time-sensitive," he said. "The faster we identify what is happening, the faster we can evaluate the patient for appropriate treatment." Sophia glanced at her brother. "And Evelyn?" She recognized classic warning signs immediately. He reviewed the emergency notes. "She also prevented people from giving you water, while your swallowing ability was uncertain. That was sensible. Stroke can impair swallowing and increase aspiration risk." Adrian's jaw tightened. What about moving her? Keeping the situation controlled and avoiding unnecessary movement while monitoring her condition was appropriate. More importantly, she communicated the symptom onset time clearly to the paramedics. The doctor looked directly at Sophia. "That information matters." Sophia became quiet. "How much?" The neurologist paused. "In stroke care, we often say time is brain. Every minute without adequate blood flow can matter. Nobody can tell you exactly what would have happened if everyone had delayed, but the rapid recognition gave us something extremely valuable." "What?" "Time to act." The phrase stayed with Adrian. Days later, the restaurant hosted another private dinner, attended by many of the same families who had witnessed Sophia's collapse. Gregory expected the evening to repair the restaurant's reputation. Vanessa expected the rumors to fade quietly. Adrian intended something else. Before dinner began, he stood. Conversation stopped almost immediately. Sophia sat beside him, still recovering but visibly stronger. Evelyn stood near the edge of the room with the other staff. Adrian looked first at Gregory. "I understand there has been concern regarding what happened to my sister here." Gregory shifted. "Mr. Moretti, we certainly never intended." "I wasn't asking." Silence. Adrian placed a copy of the medical summary on the table. "My sister suffered an acute stroke. Her physicians confirmed that rapid recognition of her symptoms was critical to getting her evaluated and treated without unnecessary delay." His gaze moved across the room. While educated people panicked, Evelyn Rhodes recognized what was happening. Evelyn froze. "She protected my sister from well-intentioned mistakes. She identified the onset time. She communicated clearly with emergency personnel." Then Adrian turned toward Gregory. "And while she was doing that, her manager repeatedly ordered her away." Gregory's face drained of color. Vanessa spoke carefully. "No one disputes that Evelyn helped. Some people were simply concerned that her involvement may have been motivated by..." "By what?" Adrian's voice remained quiet. Vanessa hesitated. "Attention." Sophia pushed herself to her feet. Then she chose a strange way to get it. Everyone looked at her. She never told us she had been an ICU nurse until the paramedics asked. Vanessa said nothing. Sophia continued. "She never contacted my brother afterward. She never asked for money. She never asked for recognition." Adrian looked toward Evelyn. "And when I investigated her, she was angry about that too." A few restrained laughs broke the tension. Even Evelyn almost smiled. Adrian walked toward her. For once, Evelyn appeared uncomfortable, not because she feared him, because an entire room was watching. "I don't need this," she whispered. "I know." "Then why are you doing it?" Gratitude expressed privately cannot repair humiliation delivered publicly. That silenced her. Adrian turned back to the guests. "Evelyn Rhodes did not exploit my sister's emergency." His eyes settled on Gregory, then Vanessa. She responded to it. He lifted his glass. "My family owes her something money cannot purchase." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Adrian finished quietly. Respect. Sophia lifted her glass first. Others followed. Evelyn looked around the room where, weeks earlier, people had seen only a waitress standing where she did not belong. Now nobody looked away. But Adrian noticed something more important. Evelyn did not straighten because powerful people finally respected her. She had been standing straight all along. And that was when he understood that giving her back the career she had lost would mean nothing if he tried to choose it for her. The next decision had to belong entirely to Evelyn. 3 weeks after the dinner, Evelyn received an envelope at work. Inside was an invitation. Moretti International was launching a scholarship program for nurses returning to clinical practice after leaving the profession to care for family members. Tuition assistance, licensing support, refresher training, clinical placement assistance. Evelyn read the announcement twice. Then she found Adrian waiting at his usual table. "You did this?" He glanced at the envelope. "I approved it." "For me?" "No." She crossed her arms. That answer arrived suspiciously fast. Adrian motioned toward the empty chair. Evelyn remained standing. He sighed. "The program was inspired by you. It was not created exclusively for you. That sounds like something a lawyer taught you to say. It sounds like something I learned after realizing you would throw the envelope at me if your name was printed on it." She almost laughed. Almost. Adrian continued. "There are nurses who leave medicine because a parent gets sick, or a spouse, sometimes a child. Years later, they want to return and discover the road back is expensive and complicated." Evelyn's expression softened. "You researched that?" "I research problems before I spend money on them." "There he is." "Who?" "The terrifying businessman." Adrian leaned back. "I was beginning to worry you'd forgotten." She finally sat. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing." Evelyn studied him. People with Adrian's wealth rarely understood that word. He seemed to recognize her suspicion. "You don't owe me an application. You don't owe my company publicity. And you certainly don't owe me a career decision." "Then why give me this?" "Because you reminded me that sometimes capable people disappear from professions for reasons that have nothing to do with capability." That landed harder than Evelyn expected. She looked down at the envelope. For years, she had told herself nursing belonged to another version of her. The woman who could work 12-hour shifts and still call her mother afterward. The woman who believed competence could solve almost anything. Alzheimer's had taught her otherwise. After Margaret died, Evelyn couldn't walk into a hospital without remembering the one patient she had loved most and could never save. Waiting tables had been simpler. Nobody died because she missed something. Nobody's frightened family searched her face for certainty. Nobody reminded her of her mother. "You think I'm afraid?" she said. Adrian did not deny it. "I think you're allowed to be." Her eyes lifted. That was not the answer she expected. "My mother forgot who I was near the end." Adrian stayed silent. "I could handle ventilators, codes, families screaming at me. But I couldn't handle walking into her room and watching her look at me like a stranger." Evelyn rubbed her thumb over the edge of the envelope. "After she died, everyone kept telling me to go back to nursing, like returning would prove I was okay. And you weren't." "No." "Are you now?" Evelyn considered the question. "I don't know." Adrian nodded. "Then don't apply." She stared at him. "You built an entire program partly because of me, and you're telling me not to use it. I'm telling you not to let gratitude make the decision." Something in her face changed. Adrian understood power well enough to know when not to use it, so he left the envelope with her and never mentioned it again. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Sophia continued rehabilitation. Adrian continued appearing for coffee with suspicious regularity. Evelyn continued pretending she had not memorized the scholarship deadline. One afternoon, she visited her old hospital. Claire met her in the lobby. They walked through familiar corridors until Evelyn stopped outside the ICU. For several minutes, she could not enter. Then a nurse hurried past, comforting a frightened family while responding to a monitor alarm with practiced calm. Evelyn remembered something she had buried beneath grief. Nursing had never been about defeating death. It had been about refusing to abandon people when they were frightened. Her mother had taught her that better than any hospital ever could. The following morning, Adrian received a message. 3 words. I applied today. He read it twice, then replied, Good. Nothing more. Evelyn smiled at the screen. Months later, after refresher courses, supervised clinical training, and the steps required for her return, Evelyn stood outside a hospital locker room wearing scrubs again. Adrian had opened a door, but he had not carried her through it. She had done that herself. And when Evelyn walked onto the floor, she understood something she had not been ready to understand before. Returning to nursing did not mean leaving her mother behind. It meant carrying forward everything caring for Margaret had taught her. Returning to nursing changed Evelyn's schedule. It did not remove Adrian from it. He simply adapted. The expensive dinners became coffee after her shifts. Formal tables became quiet walks outside the hospital. Sometimes Sophia joined them, particularly when she suspected her brother was turning what should have been a conversation into an interrogation. You know, Sophia told him one evening, normal men ask women how their day was. I ask her that. You asked how many patients she had. That is how her day was. Evelyn laughed. Adrian looked offended. Sophia looked victorious. Months earlier, Evelyn would never have imagined laughing with Adrian Moretti. She had known his reputation before Sophia collapsed. Everyone in the city knew enough to lower their voices around his name. But Evelyn had also learned there were 2 Adrians. There was the man whose silence could empty a room. And there was the brother who attended Sophia's rehabilitation appointments, even when she complained he was hovering. The man who quietly funded a scholarship program, but refused to put his name on the promotional materials. The man who never again asked Evelyn whether she planned to remain a nurse. He waited for her to tell him. That mattered. One night, after Evelyn finished a difficult shift, she found Adrian outside the hospital. You look terrible, he said. She stopped. That is an extraordinarily bad opening line. I brought coffee. Recovery. He handed her the cup. They walked in silence. Evelyn had lost a patient that evening. She did not tell him immediately. Adrian did not demand an explanation. Eventually she said, I thought going back would feel like becoming who I used to be. And? I'm not her anymore. Adrian glanced at her. Is that bad? Evelyn considered it. No. She smiled faintly. I think I'm better. He nodded, as if this were obvious. You always believed that? Yes. That's annoyingly confident. I have many flaws. Doubting you isn't one of them. She stopped walking. Adrian stopped too. For a moment, neither spoke. There had been no dramatic declaration between them. Only hundreds of smaller things. Coffee, hospital visits, arguments, Sophia's jokes. Adrian remembering which nights Evelyn worked late. Evelyn noticing when he had gone too long without sleeping. Trust had accumulated quietly until pretending it was only gratitude became more difficult than admitting what it had become. Adrian looked at her. You know what I remember most about that night? My excellent customer service? No. Gregory nearly having a heart attack. Tempting. She smiled. Adrian's expression softened. You never saw my name. Evelyn grew still. You didn't care who was sitting at that table. You didn't care who I was or what everyone else was afraid of. He stepped closer. You only saw my sister. Evelyn held his gaze, because fear should never receive treatment before the patient. For 1 second, Adrian stared at her. Then he laughed, not the restrained sound she had occasionally pulled from him. A real laugh. Open. Uncontrolled. Evelyn stared. I didn't know you could do that. Neither did I. His laughter faded, but the warmth remained. Then Adrian became serious. I spent most of my life believing protecting people meant controlling every possible danger around them. Sophia has mentioned this. Repeatedly, I assume. With diagrams. He smiled. But you taught me something. Evelyn waited. Sometimes protecting someone means trusting them to choose for themselves. His eyes stayed on hers. So I'm not going to tell you what this should become. Her heartbeat quickened. I'm not going to offer you a life you didn't ask for. He paused. But I would like the chance to be part of the one you chose. For once, Evelyn had no quick answer. Adrian Moretti could command rooms. He could frighten powerful men into silence. Yet he stood before her, asking rather than taking. That was what finally mattered. Evelyn reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers carefully. No expensive promises, she said. Fine. No deciding what's best for me. Difficult, but possible. And no investigating me whenever I refuse to answer a question. Adrian hesitated. Adrian. Fine. She laughed. Then she stepped closer. You can start with dinner. His eyebrow lifted. At the restaurant? Absolutely not. Why? I spent enough time serving you there. Adrian smiled. This time, Evelyn did not look away. She had once believed letting someone into her life meant surrendering part of herself. With Adrian, she finally understood it could mean something else. Being seen completely, and still being allowed to remain entirely her own. 1 year later, Sophia Moretti walked into the same restaurant without assistance. No wheelchair, no therapist beside her, no brother hovering 2 steps behind. Although Adrian was, technically, only 4. I can see you, Sophia called over her shoulder. I'm walking normally. I said nothing. You're thinking loudly. Evelyn laughed from across the dining room. She had arrived directly from the hospital, still wearing navy scrubs beneath her coat. Sophia crossed the room and wrapped both arms around her. A year earlier, one of those arms had fallen helplessly toward the floor. Evelyn never forgot that. Neither did Sophia. You're squeezing harder, Evelyn said. Occupational therapy. Show off. Absolutely. The restaurant had changed, too. Gregory Hale was no longer its general manager. After his handling of Sophia's emergency and the false report became impossible to defend, the owners had replaced him. Vanessa had disappeared from Adrian's private life shortly afterward. There had been no dramatic revenge, no threats, no public destruction, only consequences. The scholarship program had expanded into several hospitals, helping former nurses rebuild careers interrupted by years of family caregiving. Evelyn had refused every request to have the program named after her. She had accepted something else instead, a permanent ICU position. She had earned it herself. Guests slowly began arriving for the anniversary dinner. Among them was a young nursing student supported by the scholarship program. She recognized Evelyn immediately. You're the nurse who saved Ms. Moretti. Evelyn shook her head. I was the waitress who recognized what was happening. The student looked toward Adrian. Then why does Mr. Moretti still thank you, like you saved everything? Sophia heard her. She smiled. She didn't just save my life. Across the room, Adrian looked up. Sophia continued softly. She gave my brother his family back. Evelyn's eyes met Adrian's. A year had changed him in ways almost nobody else noticed. He was still feared, still controlled, still a man whose name could silence conversations. But Evelyn knew the man who brought coffee after night shifts, the brother who still attended Sophia's appointments even when forbidden, the man who had learned that protecting someone did not mean possessing their choices. Adrian approached and stopped beside her. "You're staring." "So are you." I started second. "That isn't a defense." His hand found hers. No announcement followed. No room fell silent. There was no dramatic promise about forever. They had learned that the strongest things in their lives had rarely arrived dramatically. A nurse had become a waitress because love demanded sacrifice. A mafia boss had trusted a stranger because fear demanded humility. A sister had survived because one overlooked woman refused to waste time. And two people who had spent years protecting everyone else had slowly learned to let someone protect a place inside them too. Sophia watched Adrian lace his fingers through Evelyn's. Neither of them let go. This time, nobody needed saving. They were simply home.